Some of the cars over here a little bit better off, but you can see right there, broken window, broken window, broken window, and some of the cars actually moved, and then there's like chunks of plywood. Thank goodness nobody was outside when all this was happening, and you can see right there some of the fencing is torn down, and that piece of plywood I said that was in a tree is actually out over here. Now all the workers inside that building, it's some sort of paper mill type of thing. No, it's not. It's not the office. But you know, it's a paper mill, and a lot of things on the roof. That's going to be a giant ventilation system. You know, I know this stuff from when I worked in wood construction. You know, they use this type of thing to, you know, for sucking sawdust and etc. Now, if they're making paper down there, not really sure what it would have been, but you got somebody up on the roof already doing the inspection. Get a little bit of a wider shot. When we came in here, okay, that I was using that. You know, there's a public storage off of Washington, has some roof damage as well. You got a truck, a trailer over here that's on its side. No, the forklifts are trying to right it. They didn't roll it over. That's not what's going on there. But you can see that they're already these people are already trying to get back to work. You know, some damage on the roof there as well. Now, this is all, we've had some really strange weather out here in Southern California last couple of days. And now we have what is only can be described as possibly a tornado or a tornado type event out here, And you can see now on this side, you get a little bit of better look at some of those cars that were hit by that high wind type of situation. A lot of broken windows, a lot of vehicles, a lot of stuff from the roof, a lot of that piping from the venting coming down out in this area. Now you can see most of the tar paper off of that roof. Hang on. Yes. My boss said I need to be quiet. I don't have IFB. We have IFB? Yeah, I can hear you, but is this going to be one of those ones where you're in edit bay 7 and I can't hear you guys? Okay, I haven't heard Sandra yet. I haven't heard anybody. Because this would be good for talkback. Hey! That's what I needed to hear. Hi, Sandra. Standing by.
Breaking news at this hour, 12:19 right now. We interrupt our programming to bring you this storm damage in Montebello. You are looking live at an aerial view from Skyfox. We are overhead of an industrial building that has sustained a lot of damage on the roof, as well as some of the trucks, the vehicles around there. Stu, up in Skyfox, let me see if we could talk to him with more details on what exactly we're looking at, Stu.
Well, I can give you details on what we're looking at, how this happened. That's going to be something for maybe a meteorologist. Now, we know this was some kind of crazy wind event. We are in the Montebello area. The main crosses out here is going to be Vail and Washington. And we got reports that we've seen video of it. It almost looks like a tornado came through this area, and the damage we're seeing kind of matches that. These are some of the major buildings, some of the major damage. We're going to keep doing an orbit in Skyfox so we can show you some of the other spots and also some of the damage on the ground. As it stands right now, no injuries. That's what we're hearing, Sandra, no injuries, which is amazing considering the amount of debris that must have been flying around in this area. And then, of course, all the damage to these buildings out here. This is, like you said, a very industrial area. This is another spot. And you can see all this, what looks like soot all on the sides of these buildings out here, and I believe what that is a tar paper when it was being ripped off that rooftops and then spun around in that funnel and then basically hitting the buildings themselves. There's a lot of damage out here. We saw plywood stuck in some trees. We saw many vehicles with broken windows and that had been moved from their parking spots, that kind of just shoved around from the high winds. And then we also saw doors, like the big sliding garage doors in some of these buildings, blown outward. So that shows some sort of negative pressure going on, and that also might have been reason why some of these rooftops were popping off. It's because of that negative pressure. They would actually blow out instead of being sucked up. So this must have been a crazy event happening out here. It is amazing that nobody was hurt. You can see Montebello Fire Department down there and some other first responders. We'll continue to keep showing you this stuff. Sandra, if you have questions, we'll definitely try to answer it, or at least give you ideas where they are at, where we're at and what we're looking at. But this is basically on Maple and Vale in the Montebello area, and the major cross out here is going to be Washington. And on Washington Boulevard, you can see right there, I've been using that public storage as my marker point. You can see some damage there as well. One of the trailers on a business behind it basically flipped over because of that high winds, and then you can also see the damage there as well. But this must have been a heck of an event that came through here. And again, no injuries that we know of at this time, but it, you know, that part alone is amazing. And Sandra, I'm going to leave it right here before I let you go and talk. But there is, look at, this is that parking lot. This is one of many of these parking lots, and you can just see so many of these cars, broken windows, debris tossed all around it. And again, this must have been from some very high winds coming through here, and maybe causing negative pressure to blow those windows out, or possibly just debris flying around.
This, Stu, is absolutely fascinating. It's eye-opening to see the swath of land that these high winds have caused damage. You're talking about, I've covered tornadoes in the past, Tornado Alley, and you think about tornado force winds or high wind gusts, and traveling through an area like that, being able to be so forceful to rip off the roofing of that entire complex, a large industrial building, and then you see that overturned big rig. We're talking about forces of winds that must be so great to do such damage in a large swath of area like that. We're not talking about just one building. You do see kind of a path of destruction, the debris field right there that we're looking at. This is devastating in terms of the damage it's done to that community in that one industrial park, as well as those vehicles, as you've been mentioning, Stu. So you're really getting a sense from Skyfox in terms of the damage there. Not just one building, now you're looking at the other building as well. So we really don't know exactly in terms of what exactly caused this, but we do know from the National Weather Service that there were reports of a tornado or tornado-like activity hitting that area. So we are definitely figuring out what we can confirm so far. And the debris field so vast and so strong. You could see that metal gate you were zooming into right there, just completely mangled and damaged because of the force of those winds, Stu. I really haven't seen anything like this really in LA, because we're not used to getting such severe wind gusts to do damage like this.
Definitely. This is the first time I've ever seen this type of damage from a wind event. And then we did see some video, some stuff from the ground, some of these workers down there. Of course, everybody had their cell phones, so they were showing some pictures. And that's the only reason I even mentioned the funnel cloud, is because I caught a glimpse of that on our way out here. Some people were showing that, and you could actually see some of that funnel cloud action from the ground down there. So these folks, you know, they took cover. They did what they needed to do to protect themselves. Thank goodness there are no injuries. But like you said, when we got here, first thing we did is we always kind of look around, and then it's like, how did this happen? Don't know the direction, if it went from, you know, north to south or east to west, but there's definitely 4 to 5 buildings, like you noticed in our shots, that are damaged, and with degrees of varying damage. So don't know if it came down, was, you know, or just scooted across this area. But this building right there, that took a heavy brunt of that. And again, where did all that debris go? There's a lot of missing plywood. There's a lot of missing tar paper, but it made its way from that building to these buildings over here. That's that box company that's off of Maple and near the cross of Washington in the Montebello area. This area right here, this is some sort of ventilation system. We see some of those pipes and stuff all the way over in a field, about a couple of units away. But right now, though, there's, thank goodness, no injuries. A lot of these workers out milling about right now, clearly not going going to be returning to work anytime soon. But you can see, like right there is what I was talking about. There's some of that venting, or that what we believe is that piping from that roof, and then some of it landed on cars over here.
Wow.
And again, you can see all that damage. You got broken windows, multiple broken windows. Don't know if that's from pressure or from debris flying in the air. Thank goodness nobody was out there. If that was debris, that could have really injured somebody. But wow, the cleanup just not even starting yet. This it must have happened just about 30 minutes ago.
Just devastating. You see the damage right there. Let's bring in Maria Coban, who's joining us on the phone with her expertise and what exactly could have happened to hit this area to the degree it has, Maria.
Wow. First of all, this is incredible, and what a rare event for us here in Los Angeles. We talked about this earlier this morning, how the National Weather Service actually issued a tornado watch yesterday for a brief time only. And when we were talking about the forecast earlier today about a mixed bag and the chance for thunderstorms, this is exactly what I was talking about, the potential for some water spouts over the water. That's why a lot of people were taken off of the beach. But this is farther inland, and the recipe was there today. The dynamics were definitely in place in terms of seeing something tornadic. I haven't seen the actual footage, so I'm sorry I can't comment on that right now. But we did have a lot of instability. We still do. We have a lot of instability in the atmosphere. We have this cold air. We have some gusty winds coming in from the south. And we have these different levels in the atmosphere that can create this tornadic, if you will, cyclone. And so I'm not at all surprised that this could be, or could have been, a tornado. We often will talk about an EF0, right? We talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we saw some of that damage. I can't remember if this was in Pico Rivera area. Do you remember that, Sandra? And we thought maybe it was a downburst or a microburst or something. But this sounds like it's a lot more extensive and kind of a varied range of damage. The National Weather Service will have to physically go there and actually survey the damage. And that's when we talk about that EF, the Enhanced Fujita Scale. So it ranges from F0 to F5. And we generally talk about this kind of stuff in the plain states, right? In the South, not here in Southern California. So we had that mix of cold air and a little bit of that sunshine. So it was kind of the perfect recipe today to see this kind of activity in this tornadic event. So I can't wait to actually see the damage and see what kind of destruction was made. So when we look at the Fujita scale and the damage, if this is an F1 or F2, we're talking about maybe winds of 86 to 100 miles per hour. And we were clocking some winds of 80 plus up at the highest peaks of the mountain. So this is kind of new and surprise.
It is absolutely shocking to see the damage, and I know you're really going to look into all of that, Maria, when you can see piece by piece what we're looking at. Many buildings just torn off in terms of their roof being exposed right now because of the winds that have just taken off all of that siding and the roofing. You have employees from those industrial complexes outside really surveying the damage, and they really don't know what hit them. Let's take a look at some video that did come in of the actual incident. And there you see in the sky blowing all around, those look like large black crows, but that is actual pieces of the roofing just being blown around, torn off of these buildings, and then just flying in the sky. You see hundreds of pieces of those black. Oh, there you see a better shot right there of kind of that tornadic funnel that Maria was talking about, those winds swirling around. And again, there was a tornado warning issued yesterday, as she mentioned, but clearly this is video which shows the activity and shows the damage being done as that funnel system and those winds really hit that area of Montebello. Let's go back to Stu. If you can, just show us around. I know more people are milling around, again, not knowing what hit them. And look at all that damage to all the vehicles.
I don't have any IFB.
Stu, if you could hear me, we're looking at all the damage from the vehicles, windows blown out, and you can see the employees, I presume, from these industrial complexes coming out. Thankfully, again, he's been reporting, and we've been saying no injuries reported because of this event, but clearly so many cars, damages, just because of the high winds and the sheer force of those wind gusts. And now these employees and people around that area surveying the damage right there, but looking at a more aerial view view, if we can, of the rooftops of what we just saw during the actual event happen, of the winds blowing the rooftops off of those buildings right there. And there are about 4 industrial buildings that have sustained damage, as what we can see so far right now from Stu's shot in Sky Fox. But clearly it is just devastating. I don't know if we have Maria, or we do have Stu now available to talk. First, Maria, let's go to Stu with what you can see, Stu, from Sky Fox.
Well, we actually were doing a count. It was funny. The first thing I heard, we lost our IFB there for a minute. First thing I heard when you came back was you were talking about the numbers of buildings. We actually counted them. There's 7 buildings, that major buildings that have been affected, and mostly rooftop damage. And then, like you saw, some of those doors, those huge sliding doors, blown off of some of these buildings. This one, not one of the ones we were talking about earlier on, but this area right here, a lot of these cars sustained a lot of damage out here. What just amazes me is all these broken windows. And, I mentioned it, it might have been just negative pressure, or it might have actually been debris flying around. But imagine if there was enough debris to break a window like that, then it would be enough to definitely injure a person had they been out there. So I'm glad that everybody took shelter inside these buildings when this wind event took place. You can see some of that debris from the rooftops laying on some of these cars down here. Some of the vehicles actually seem to have rolled away or been pushed off the walls. As we keep coming around, this is that box company, and this is going to be off of Maple Drive near the cross of Washington in Montebello. You can see all that roof been tore up. A lot of the tar paper gone, but more importantly, all this plywood that was up here, all of this was removed or pulled off because of that wind event and then flung around. Thank goodness nobody, can't say it enough, I guess, thank goodness nobody was hurt, and that could have been a lot of the reason why there's so much damage in the nearby area. But just imagine, that's a 4x8 piece of plywood just flying around at who knows at what types of speeds. Now we're going to take a look right here. They were taking a look. They were concerned about that one pickup truck. Looked like it was pushed up against the building. Not so sure about that one, if that's wind damage or just a bad parking job. But these vehicles right here, you can really see a lot of broken windows, a lot of damage on the cars. We actually saw some employees, either probably the people that own them, coming out and taking a look at their cars. Look at that. There's it looks like a piece of wood wedged up underneath the roof rack on that one car. So it's just amazing to me that nobody was, and thankful that nobody was injured in all of this. And then you have all that scoring, or what looks like just carbon on the sides of all these cars and the building. That I still very much believe that that's the tar paper when that cyclone or whatever that wind event was basically whipping this stuff around. It was just beating the sides of those buildings. And, it's tar paper. It is actually made from tar, and then whatever dust and debris was accumulated on these rooftops. Going back over to the Vale side. Now, when I say Vale side, that we're talking about the street name, that's going to be Vale right there. And we're taking a look at some of these other businesses. Out here, the damage seems to be a little bit less. So I don't know if this is where it started or ended, but you can see right there that same type of scoring, or what looks like debris on the sides of the building. And then look at these rooftops just ripped off. Now, I've seen this, everybody loves to watch a good documentary. I've seen a lot of documentaries about tornadoes and how they affect the buildings, and it's a lot of times is negative pressure, that the air gets sucked away so quickly outside that the pressure inside the house creates these explosions of pressure, and that could be what was going on here. When we see some of those heavy garage doors, that's the reason why I think that, because the damage seems to be pushed outward, not sucked in. So it is just amazing. Again, no injuries, can't say that enough. Hopefully that'll stay that way. Fire department down there, you can see one fire truck there. Also no wires down, which is also so interesting to me, that they still have power in all these places, yet they have all this damage to all these buildings.
Yes, Stu, what's really interesting about tornadoes is that the randomness of where the impacts are felt, because it seems like it could be skipping a building or so and then damaging and devastating one area and then skipping over another area where things are just perfectly fine and unaffected by the heavy gusts and winds, and then it will totally devastate another area as well. So we are looking right now at some video that was sent that captured the moment of these high gusts, a potential tornado hitting Montebello just about 30 minutes or so ago. And you can see the heavy wind gusts just blowing in the air, tearing off those tiles from the roofs, the tarp paper, as well as plywood, and the circular motion of this. I don't know if we have Maria still on the line with us, and the National Weather Service saying that, you know, a tornado warning is an indication that a tornado has been sighted and that conditions are ripe for this type of activity. Now, if there is a tornado warning, Maria, what do you suggest people do? Because thankfully, all of these workers actually, I guess, took cover, and nobody was hurt in all this.
Oh, thank goodness. I mean, I've been listening to you talking to Stu about this, and thank goodness that no one was hurt. We really did have the conditions outside today for something like this to occur. And even yesterday afternoon, we talked about the recipe of very cold, unstable air. That's what we had. We had a little bit of sunshine, and that's the trigger that often comes with creating these supercell thunderstorms. We typically would talk about this kind of stuff when we're in the South or the Plain States and talking about Tornado Alley. We don't usually have these types of weather conditions here, but that is exactly what we've been seeing. We had a report of potentially a downdraft or a microburst last week. So the same with these atmospheric rivers creating and clashing with the cold air from the north. I've been looking at the satellite radar pictures. You know that we've been doing this all morning, and we just didn't see the hook or that indicator in the radar. I'm looking at it right now, and I'm thinking there might have been one on the radar just as I was signing off and turning off some of the computers that I had in front of me. And I'm looking at sort of the historical data, and that's really what the National Weather Service is going to do. They're going to determine if it's a tornado based on a couple of criteria. One is eyewitness reports, and we seem to have plenty of that, right? All the video that you're showing to everyone, that's going to indicate.
Oh, we just lost Maria right now, and she was explaining to us how they're going to determine whether or not this actually was a tornado that touched down right here in Montebello. But clearly, the devastation is wide, it is impactful, and the debris field is very, very large. And when there is a tornado warning, the National Weather Service does recommend, rather, that people move to the interior room if you're in a home. That the warning means there's imminent danger to life and property, that there was a tornado sighting. So when there is a warning, you should move to the interior and the lowest floor of a sturdy building. Avoid windows. And if you're in a vehicle, a mobile home, or if you're outdoors, move to the closest shelter that you can to protect yourself from flying debris. So that is according to the National Weather Service. In case, I mean, we don't issue these many times, and we don't really talk about what to do in case there is a tornado warning, but definitely protect yourself from any flying debris. Go inside into the internal area of a building, away from all the windows. Let's see what Stu up in Skyfox is looking at now. You're showing us more of this devastation, all the damage left behind, Stu.
Yeah, this is off of Washington. This is the first time I actually saw this. This is probably the rooftop off of that public storage building, and it came down here onto Washington Boulevard. Also have a tree down right there, right by that bus stop. Again, nobody was at that bus stop when all this was happening, thank goodness. And then we're taking a look at that building. This is going to be that public storage building. You can see some damage there as well. Portions of that roof missing. Then there's some sort of trucking yard right there, and that's where that trailer was turned over. These guys got on it really quick. They're using their forklifts, and then they had a big rig tow over there. They righted that trailer. That was on its side for a little bit. Then we have another one that's the same building right there, but you have some damage right here. Don't know if this was the beginning or the end of that event, but then you see some of that debris in the yards nearby where they're keeping those trailers. And then, of course, we make our way over to that street that's going to be Maple right there where that box company was. This building really, and these employees, they really took the brunt of it right here. This is where it really kind of came down. As you see some of those first responders, I was looking at those firefighters, you know, they're basically just making the rounds. They're going to be going through, they're going to look at structural damage. They're going to make sure that, you know, just basically talk to everybody, make sure there were no injuries, but they also want to make sure that these buildings are going to be safe, and that if there's something precariously hanging or there is some damage that maybe we don't see in Skyfox, they're going to be able to make it safe, or make it, at least tell people don't be in this area until it can be made safe. But so many of these vehicles out here, these employees that work at this company, that's right, you know what, let's get the name of it real quick because I keep calling them the box company, Royal Paper Box Company. There was a Royal Paper Box Company. These folks, they really took the brunt of it. So many of those cars damaged down there. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of insurance reports, a lot of broken windows, a lot of damage right there. But then we make our way over here, and we can see some of this area as well. Not so many employees' vehicles, but look at the damage to these businesses.
Wow.
That roof completely ripped off right there. I mean, you can, this one, some of them we've been seeing, you can see like little holes. This one's completely gone.
Yeah, it's
and
completely
this is also
torn
in the area
off, Stu. And you could see right through the building, it's down to the studs in terms of the roofing, completely just blown off. And there you see the inside of the building right there, the industrial complex we're looking at. And you could see even internally that inside that building, there's a bunch of devastation and debris that's just strewn about as well.
Definitely, and this is the thing. It's like, you know, these high winds come ripping through here, and thank goodness, you know, and this is a lot of metal here too. So could you imagine if some of that metal gets airborne and then starts whipping around at those high speeds? And then all these skylights, they're all been broken, pretty much every one on that rooftop. And there's some other businesses nearby as well. You know, I don't know if they open those up later on, maybe to, you know, help people escape or get out of the building afterwards. But this is another area where you see some of that yellow tape up here. You see some damage to some of these sheds. But again, it must have been so crazy. And I don't know, you know, nobody's talking about the time frame. I mean, was this a 5-minute event? Was this a 2-minute event? Was it even less than that? This thing must have just really just hit, and then these folks took cover. Thank goodness they did. But in the end, it's just a lot of devastation to property, and that's, you know, that is a relief. But my goodness, what a thing to live through. And to be able to talk about is, you know, we said that this is very common in the Midwest. This is common out in the plains areas. But here in California, this is something we never, ever see. And a lot of these folks are going to have this story to tell. Yeah, I lived through a tornado in Montebello.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously very rare here, if not unprecedented here in Southern California. But I should say, I mean, at least unprecedented in modern times. I think there was a warning issued about 40 years ago, according to the National Weather Service, about a tornado packing winds about 113 to 157 miles per hour that swept through downtown LA. But again, this is unprecedented in terms of recent memory, ever having to issue a tornado warning or ever having a potential tornado touch down right here in this area. And of course, you could just see the damage left behind. I mean, what kind of force could cause all of this damage, completely tearing apart buildings in terms of shearing off the rooftops of these buildings, and then not just a couple of cars being damaged by the sheer impact and the winds, but we're talking about dozens of cars there. You can see the damage left behind, Stu, as you're showing us, just windows blown out, moved around, these cars just being packed next to each other, and then debris flying into these cars as well. It is just completely devastating in terms of the images that we're seeing. But again, thankfully, no one was hurt. And the trail of damage left behind and the amount of buildings, we're talking about, I think you said 7 now that have felt this impact. I'm just wondering, I know as we get video in from viewers and from witnesses, just what this must have sounded like, Stu.
Yeah, you know, you've heard it in the past. They make that comment. It sounds like a freight train rolling through there, and I can just imagine all that metal, all that debris, everything just flying around. This is another one of the yards between the between Vale and Maple. Those are the two streets out here, and I don't know what this was, but you can see some damage, just some crates down there. You know, some wood also been thrown around. You got some employees that are already starting to do a lot of their cleanup. That's basically what they're going to. A lot of going on down there, but you know, at least it's just that. And then it seems like this is going to be a catering truck yard. We haven't seen any damage over here, but now that I said that, of course, we're going to find something. It looks like a telephone pole may have come down, and that's what I was talking about. I was amazed to see that no power lines were down. You got somebody up on a rooftop, a roof of their truck, maybe checking their skylight. Does seem like they are missing one right there. And then, of course, what we're seeing right here looks like a part of a pole came down. Oh, now we're seeing something a little different. These trucks are all askew. So maybe they were actually moved, or they had moved, or the wind had pushed them together. So yeah, this is so we're seeing some more damage, or finding more damage right now, and this is going to be in a catering truck yard that's going to be off of, I believe that's going to be on the Maple side. But yeah, this is it is just amazing the amount of damage and how quickly it all happened. And again, a tornado or some sort of wind event out here in Montebello, just amazing.
Yes, Stu, as we get more information on this, let's bring in Miguel Arellano. We have him on the phone. He was actually in a building when this event happened. Miguel, do you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for joining us here on Fox 11. Tell us what you saw, what you heard, and where you were when this all happened.
I was inside the building, and we have a window in the back of the building, and they just said a tornado, and I just started recording. I don't know if you guys can see it.
So you were right by the window recording all of this happening?
Yeah, well, it's happening. I mean, then I started to run when I noticed it was an actual real tornado, but yeah. I mean, I don't know if you want me to send it to you, but yeah, then the damage, everybody just running.
So we can faintly see what you're showing us, but what did it sound like and feel like? So first you had the warning, so were you able to have the time to kind of get into a safe place?
Well, I mean, we're not used to tornadoes here in California, so you just see everybody running, and well, you follow the leader, I guess. So yeah, but how did it feel? It was something you don't feel every day, but yeah, it was pretty intense. Yeah, it's something, a lot of people crying, a lot of people worried about their family, their kids.
What did it sound like to you, Miguel? Because looking at the damage, you know, we see roofs torn apart, we see metal mangled, garage doors blown in. What did it sound like, and how long did it last?
It lasted about a minute, more than a minute, because it touched down when I started recording, and the video is about 33 seconds. It felt like a bomb or something exploded, but then you actually see everything just flying around, all the debris. But yeah, it's actually just, I don't know, it just felt weird. You're not used to it. We're used to earthquakes.
Yeah, absolutely. So you saw yourself all the debris start flying, and you guys were running to protect yourselves?
Yeah, to run, to protect ourselves. Pieces of the roof were flying out. Just this damage, and yeah, we don't have a protocol for tornadoes, I guess. So everybody just huddled in a safe place, I guess. And yeah, I mean, it was an experience, I guess.
And which company do you work for? What building were you in?
The building, the Royal Paper.
Okay, what do you do there? What kind of activity was happening during that time?
We do labels. They print labels, and we package them in boxes. Yeah, so I mean, there's another video I took of when they take the roof's gone.
Oh wow.
Car damages, but yeah.
So you have a lot of equipment inside that warehouse that you work with day in and day out. I see the heavy shelving. Are there forklifts as well?
Forklifts, all kinds of people, different departments, but yeah.
And so what did it sound like again? If you could share with us, you know, you said it sounded like a bomb, or it felt like a bomb went off. Tell us more about how it sounded as it was rolling through.
Well, you just feel like, because of the wind, you can feel like the roof starts. Oh, look at one of the employees. Say hi. He was inside his car.
He could come out and talk to us.
I don't know if you guys what. Yeah, you can.
It was just really bad. We were working and they just hit. So we were lucky to be alive.
Wow.
We were just working and they hit us right where we worked at. It took the roof off, but we're fine.
And how about your car, sir?
Well, how about your car? What's the damage to your car?
Well, it just broke the window and a lot of dents, scratches, but thank God we're alive.
Yeah, I guess all the employees are coming out through the back, so he's an employee.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Well, we thank him for stopping, but look at his car. It's just completely covered in
look
debris.
at his car.
Absolutely, and here you see one after another cars leaving that complex. Wow, the damage in the cars, side window blown out, the back window blown out, the rear view mirror on the side completely hanging off. So this is what we're talking about, dozens of cars damaged and impacted, and that is just more of the minimal damage we're talking about, because these entire buildings, Miguel, as you were in, we saw the roof being blown
Look at this
off.
car passing car after car blown off. Yes, a lot of vehicles were damaged. The roof, the ACs are all over the place. Yeah, but they're evacuating, letting us go home one by one, letting us get our personal stuff out. But yeah.
And when you said you were inside the building with your employees, and you were running, how many of you were together and were able to make it to safety or get to a safe place?
Yeah, we were about like 15 in a like secure like concrete burial wall. And yeah, I mean, we were just in a huddle. I guess in this video you can actually see when we're in a huddle, but I would have to show it to you later.
Yeah, absolutely. Send us all your video, an eyewitness account of what happened. Miguel was inside the Royal Paper Box Company doing work when this happened. Do you have the exact timestamp of when you took that video, when it came through?
Well, I actually do have it, but I would have to send it to you right now, and I will send it. I'll send you all the videos that I recorded, so you guys can have it, see the damage.
Was there any kind of alert or an alarm that was a loudspeaker, perhaps a warning in your building that told you, hey, get to a safe place?
No, the power went off first. Literally the power went off. After the power went off, we didn't think nothing of it until somebody just screamed out tornado, and I was able to see out the window that there was a tornado touching down, I guess, and that's when I started run, and then I started to record, and then other than that, then yeah, everybody started to run to, I guess, where we thought it was a safe spot to be in the huddle, I guess, together. But yeah, it was pretty scary when the roof is getting torn off.
And how long have you been working at this company?
I actually just started. I barely have a week.
Oh, Miguel.
I just barely started.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if
not
you
good,
can,
right?
because we're looking at the large swath of devastation, it's impacting a lot of businesses around there. Do you know for what kind of companies are surrounding the Royal Paper Box Company? What are we looking at? We see an area where there's a lot of food trucks, it looks like, that are being parked or stored there. What kind of surrounds your business?
Just a lot of, I guess they do mechanic work for big trailers. There's another one in front of us. I really don't know what it is. There's the A&PM in the corner, but I mean, I don't think the building that got really hit the most was our building, because that's where it started, I guess.
Wow,
and I guess it just ended up disappearing right there too, because it didn't get our neighbors at all. It didn't do nothing to their property. It only hit the Royal Paper. It actually did more damage there. than the buildings around it.
Yeah, we're taking an aerial view from Skyfox right now overhead, and it's the randomness of a tornado or a potential tornado that it can skip over a building, perhaps untouch a building, and leave something pristine and undamaged, and then cause damage to another building. So we are seeing many buildings here, and cars and food trucks destroyed or damaged by this, but clearly the Royal Paper Box Company got a lot of damage because of this wind event. But we are seeing a lot of damage in your area, Miguel, and we really appreciate you telling us again what you saw, what happened. What did you see starting to move first, though, in terms of when you knew you were in danger?
Our doors, the windows shaking, and I mean it's like thunder. I guess when you're inside the building, la lamina, más bien. Well, it sounds like thunder. I mean, everything just starts, papers just dust, everything just starts going everywhere. So yeah, I mean it just feels like thunder. I guess it sounds like thunder, and then everything just shaking. I mean, you really just want to get covered, right?
Yeah, was it loud or louder than any thunder you've ever heard before?
No, pretty much the same thing, because I mean, it's just blowing everything, and you're just seeing debris going everywhere, and all you see is just, well, it looks like a tornado, I guess. I mean, you only really see it in a movie, but yeah, I mean, if you see it live, then yeah, it's something different. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, to be in the building at the time, and I mean, this is the first tornado, I guess you can say, in California, or right here in Los Angeles. I mean, we really don't get them, so it was an experience. The good thing that none of our employees got hurt, so.
That is amazing, and we are so thankful for that, because we're looking at video of a lot of people coming out to assess the damage, to survey the damage, and you see all of those cars driving away. How many employees would you say are in your building alone?
About 200.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of personnel here. There's a lot. Drivers, forklift operators, people that do the printing, labels, the cutters. There's a lot of employees at that building.
And thankfully, no injuries to report. No one was hurt in all of this. Did you actually see all the debris inside your building kind of swirling? We're taking a look at some video that was sent in of the debris flying outside the building, kind of in a circular motion, as we kind of assume tornadoes do. But what did it look like from inside your building?
Well, all the paper just flying away, all the debris, I guess if I show you the video, I guess you can see it, and you guys can enhance it, and you guys can see how it actually looks, how it's spinning, and the paper and wind. As it got closer, that's when you see I start running, because I didn't want to be too close, so I ended up running away from it.
That is just
But yeah, I guess
incredible.
I would have to show you the video, well, send you the video so you guys can look at it, enhance it better, I guess.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And as you mentioned, Miguel, a lot of people were scared. You were saying some people were crying as well. So we just thank you, and we are so happy that everyone is safe. As we take a live look at some of the cars leaving the area right there that are completely devastated because of the debris and also the force of this wind event. So we are going to keep on this story and showing you the damage done by this potential tornado damage right here in Montebello. We are now getting more accounts of what exactly happened, what it felt like, what it sounded like inside at the moment of impact. But take a look at all the destruction and the devastation left behind because of these high gusty winds, tearing off completely partial roofs right there, completely gone because of this. And this is rare in California. We don't issue tornado warnings much or have to talk about them much, but the National Weather Service issuing a tornado warning yesterday in some parts of Southern California. And today we are looking at the damage of potential tornado damage and wind. And of course, the National Weather Service will have a survey and assessment team come out to figure out what truly caused all this destruction. All right, and as we get to the top of the hour right here, almost at 1 o'clock on this Wednesday, you're taking a live look right now at Montebello, where the National Weather Service says potential tornado damage can be seen, and you can see just how devastating this is. You're looking at complete roofs torn off because of this potential tornado damage, high wind gusts. Witnesses saying it sounded and felt like a bomb went off for a minute as workers in the Royal Paper Box companies and others huddled for safety inside those buildings. Thankfully, no one was hurt in all of this, but you can see the swath of devastation left behind, the debris filled. And we're taking a live look right now from Skyfox and Stu overhead. Stu, tell us what we know so far in terms of what you're seeing.
Well, we'll just keep looking at the devastation out here. It seems like the more we come by and take a look, we find something different almost every time. It's all happening out here in the Montebello area. I'm going to kind of take a shot here and bring up just part of the map, just so you can kind of see some of the street names that are out there. I'm not sure if you should be seeing them right now. So you got Vale right there. That's going to be one of the major streets. And then on the other side of the damage you have, it's going to be Maple Street. That's going to be the other one, the two major streets out here where all this damage is. And again, this is near the cross of Washington. That's going to be the major cross out here. Now, we don't know clearly how the direction of the damage, or however this tornado or wind event moved from area to area, but we can definitely see that devastation in the past. Some of these buildings, like this one right here, really got it hard. And then you can see all that debris kind of just tossed about. My curiosity has always been is like, where did all that plywood go? Those are big giant 4x8 sheets of plywood that are on these rooftops. They've been lifted up and thrown who knows how far. We see them on some of these other rooftops nearby. We've seen them on the roadways out there as well. There's, like you said, there's a catering truck yard out here also. And, you know, people are basically out just doing the surveying of the damage and really just kind of taking care of their property. A lot of these tarps were not there when we first arrived. We saw a lot of these folks, probably the owners of those trucks, out here looking at the damage and protecting what they have, putting up those tarps. You got one of the guys right there on just basically doing what we were just talking about, and he's up on that rooftop. You see some damage out here. You got a pole or some sort of a light standard that may have come down and hit one of these trucks. These trucks, they're the light part of the damage. Of course, these are private owners, and we hope that they'll be able to take care of it. But this is the box company that we've been talking about so much this afternoon. And that is going to be off of Maple, near Maple in Washington, out here in the Montebello area. Now, that Royal Paper Box Company, they really got hit hard. Their employees are the ones that really kind of have the property damage that it would be. So many of these vehicles out here, some of them have already been leaving, but you can see the debris field out near that building, and then so many broken windows, so much damage that we can't really see, dents and scratches. And this is from the debris that was coming off of these buildings, landing on these cars out here. We heard that employee talking about possibly 200 employees. I believe there's something, probably about that many, because when we first arrived, these parking lots were full, and they are allowing them to go home. We've been watching these these employees taking care of their vehicles, covering up their windows the best they can to make that ride home. Hopefully everybody has insurance and they'll be able to get that stuff fixed. No injuries. I can't say that enough. That is so amazing, and I'm so happy to report that nobody was hurt. It is just this crazy event that happened out here. And, you know, you pointed it out, Sandra. You said 40 years ago we had a tornado in the downtown area. Montebello, I don't think they probably ever had one at all. But the damage started or ended out here. This is going to be on Washington. That's going to be the public storage, Washington and Vale. And we have some, some of the rooftops on the sidewalks out here. Montebello Police Department came out quickly, brought out their signs. Yeah, the roads are closed, and that's probably for all the first responders that are down there. And they have to make sure that these buildings are safe. We see the fire department walking through a lot of these buildings. And they just have to, you know, yes, the roof has been torn off, but they've got to also make sure that there's nothing hanging or there's nothing, live wires exposed or anything like that. And that's what they're doing. And if they are, they'll try to take care of it or make it safe or safer, or they're just going to do something like put tape around it and say they have to have, you know, somebody to come in to check the structure to make sure that they can have businesses in this area again. But the devastation, we heard that employee talk about a minute maybe. This is a lot of devastation to happen within a minute, and to have those high winds just come through here, ripping through here, devastating all these businesses, ripping these rooftops off, damaging the stuff inside and out. We were talking about some of those garage doors. That's one of the ones that I was talking about right there. It looks as if though it was blown out, and then you have all that devastation on the outside, pallets tossed about. You see some damage on that truck. I would venture to say that wasn't like that before the wind event. So it must have been a very dangerous situation and just devastating in damage. Just look at all this debris out here, the rooftops ripped off, and then that debris tossed in some cases onto other roofs out here. That's what we were looking at earlier on. It's like, well, where did this come from? Well, that's clearly a piece of plywood. These roofs are all intact. So that must have come from another part of another building or something. So some of this stuff might have been thrown 100 yards, 50 yards, who knows? But again, no injuries. Cannot stress that enough. Sandra?
Yeah, you are looking at something that a lot of people have not seen in decades, right, Stu? This is pretty much, you know, the first time we're seeing tornado damage or potential tornado damage seen right here, and of course devastating this community. And thankfully, as you've been mentioning, no injuries to report, but now it's all the survey and the cleanup, and to figure out what exactly happened. Of course, the National Weather Service will be dispatching a survey and assessment team to figure out what exactly happened, kind of study the weather models. And I am getting a report from Marie Quibon, who just joined us, that she did see the radar supports that there was indeed a tornado. So that is what she's seeing from all the radar activity that she analyzes. She does say that there was a signature hook in the rotation of the thunderstorm cells, indicating that there was tornadic activity. So she says that she wouldn't be surprised if this isn't classified to at least an EFO or F1 tornado. So that means the wind gusts that we're looking at, you're looking at damage, a potential wind gust that may have reached 85 to 100 miles per hour or 110 miles per hour. And the winds could have been from a downdraft or a microburst, but with severe thunderstorms and cold air, those are the two things, plus sun, that's the perfect recipe for something like this to happen. So she says that the conditions are still going to be ripe today and tomorrow, or tonight rather, for this type of weather. So people, be on the lookout, make sure you're tuning in to make sure that your area is not under a tornado warning. And when there is a tornado warning, we want to remind you that the National Weather Service does recommend that if you are under a tornado warning, to go inside someplace on a lower floor, a basement if possible, get away from windows, stay in the internal structure of a building or home. And obviously, if you're on the road, as so many of us are in our cars in a moving vehicle, to just make sure you stay braced beside something to avoid any possible debris. Stu, you have more from us, from your vantage point from Skyfox.
Well, Sandra, Jeff, our pilot this afternoon, just telling me that we have heavy incremental weather moving in. Fancy way of saying we've got some heavy rains and low clouds moving into this area. So we're not leaving, but the shot is definitely going to change as we got to get out of the way of this cell as it's making its way through this area. Probably not what these folks want to have with the roofs exposed like that. They got a heavy rainstorm coming through here. I can actually just show you real quick what we're talking about. Just moving things around here with Skyfox, but this is what the clouds look like right in front of us and right near us. And then moving around to the other side, this is what Jeff is kind of concerned about. These clouds right here are actually coming towards us right now, and that's that heavy wall of water that's coming down from that rain cell. So we're going to move away from this area right now and stay safer and keep an eye on what's going on. But this all happening out in the Montebello area. I'm going to swing the camera back around. Sorry for the folks at home. And try to get it so that we get the skid out of the shot right there, because that's the general area where the damage was earlier on, is actually right over there. But we got to move Skyfox out of the way right now, and as soon as we can, we'll get you guys a better shot. But right now, the weather definitely changing, and then we've got to move out of the way for the cell to move through.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you to Jeff and yourself, of course, Stu, for all the work that you do. I know it's not easy hovering and maneuvering over damage like that in Montebello, and then trying to avoid a situation for yourselves in terms of inclement weather that we've been dealing with for the past several days. And obviously we thought today would be a little lighter day, but clearly we see what destruction can be left behind by those high winds, high gusts, potential tornado damage right there in Montebello, as well as cells still coming in, rain bands that people have to contend with, including our own Jeff and Stu and Skyfox. So safety is the #1 concern for both of you. Please, please, please be safe up there in our Skyfox and in the sky. So this again is the situation in Montebello. As you can see from an aerial perspective, damage has just been devastating for that community and that area. We do have someone from the Montebello Fire Department joining us right now. If you could hear me, sir?
Absolutely. Good afternoon.
Hi there. Thank you so much for joining us during this very busy time. Obviously, what can you tell us in terms of what you know from the ground there and what you're dealing with?
Absolutely. So shortly after 11:20 this morning, the Montebello Fire Department received a call of a microcell event that had caused some roof damage to at least one structure. All of our resources from the Montebello Fire Department and the Montebello Police Department were deployed shortly after that and are currently on scene doing a preliminary assessment.
And so clearly this is not just one building, right? You're seeing a wide swath of damage and a huge debris field. Can you describe more of what you're seeing there, what the first responders responding to the scene are dealing with?
Absolutely. So right now, members of our fire department are ensuring that all the buildings that are affected in this established perimeter are evacuated. Our police department is doing a phenomenal job of closing off any neighboring streets, asking anybody who was in the affected perimeter or nearby if they can remain outside of that area. And we are still currently doing our preliminary assessment, but that is what is taking place right now.
And describe the scene, because I know this looks very industrial. It looks like an industrial area, an industrial park. Thankfully, no injuries, Alex, to report when you're talking about hundreds of employees working hard in those buildings. But thankfully also that it doesn't seem to be impacting a residential area.
Absolutely. As you noted, this is the more southern end of Montebello, so this is a much more industrial area, a lot less residential homes here. As you noted, the structures that you can see affected, we're more of an industrial type, so yes.
And obviously, though, we really feel for the businesses they're impacted. And then, on top of that, the hundreds of employees who came outside and saw their cars destroyed. And I know you've had a perimeter set up to make sure that people are safe, that they're evacuated from those buildings. What can people be cautious about in terms of if they're going into that area? I know there's a number of road closures as well.
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. For anybody who is near the area or plans on traveling through this area, you'll definitely want to take note of the road closures that are currently in place. For anybody on scene, you can certainly be in correspondence with our Montebello police officers. They'll be sure to direct you to the nearest and quickest path to reach your destination. And for anybody who was in the affected buildings, we're going to ask that you please continue to stay in touch with our personnel who are on scene as they do this assessment. And absolutely, we want to get everybody back in as soon as they can, but only when it's as safe as they can.
And I know the Montebello Fire Department does an excellent job at outreach in terms of the community. And it is pretty unprecedented when you think about it, Alex, to think about a tornado warning, right? And the conditions in the weather it's still ripe for those conditions. A possible or potential tornado warning could be issued again in terms of what the National Weather Service is saying. So have you ever had to warn residents or people about a tornado warning and what they should do?
Right now, we are establishing this as a microcell event. So we definitely want to advise people to stay alert to their local public safety departments, and of course, the National Weather Service. They do a fantastic job posting updates, and we definitely advise folks stay in touch with them.
But this is pretty rare in terms of, I guess, my career and your career maybe here in Los Angeles to deal with something like this.
Absolutely. It certainly is a rare event from the sunny skies we're so used to particularly this winter that we've seen a lot of rain and a number of other significant events. But I would like to make a mention that these are the type of situations, no matter what they are, that our public safety professionals train for, especially here at the Montebello Fire Department and the Montebello Police Department. No matter what region we are in, all of our departments train for events like this. And as noted earlier, our departments are currently deployed and ensuring that the perimeter is established and that everyone affected is taken care of best we can.
Absolutely. We know the fantastic work that you do. The Montebello Fire Department. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. I know you're very busy doing the work that you do to contain and help with that situation there on the ground. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am. Take care.
All right, Stu, I see you going farther away to keep safe. So let's bring in Christy Fajardo, who is on the ground there. Oh, my goodness, Christy, I see the rain coming down, too.
It is, and you know, the weather has just been pretty wacky. It was, actually, we could see the sun about 5 minutes ago, and then it started pouring rain, but nothing compared to what people saw here when that tornado came through. People describe hearing a very loud boom. We know that there's pretty much extensive damage. Several cars were damaged. You can see all the debris that has been thrown around, strewn around. Maple Avenue now is closed, and we understand there's even more damage down the street, which is why they've put up tape to block people from going in. And if we pan that way, I can show you it has knocked out electricity, and this is a very busy intersection, and you can see the lights are out. It is causing chaos. The same is true on Vale Street, which is one street over. This is Maple Avenue that you're seeing right now. And again, the rain is now starting to come down, and people still have very rattled nerves from that tornado, and the cleanup is just getting underway. That's the latest from here. Let's send it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Christy. I hope that we can see more, obviously, from the ground right there as she navigates her way around the damaged area. But we're talking about a broad strip of area in Montebello, thankfully an industrial area where no residents or homes have been impacted from this. But the fire department there calling it a microcell or microburst. The National Weather Service says it could have been a potential tornado touching down in Montebello. Of course, it'll take a few hours or days perhaps to figure out what exactly touched down right there in Montebello to cause all that damage. And we're talking about several large industrial buildings just getting torn up from the wind and high gusts, and their roofs just ripped off completely. And we've seen video, if we have that, of the winds whipping around from an eyewitness there when this happened at around 11:20, according to law enforcement officials there on the scene. That's when they got their first call of a roof being torn apart because of this event. And there you see it, the video right there, with all of that debris being strewn about and also just being picked up with the gusty winds right there in a circular fashion. But again, whether this was a microcell event or a potential tornado, that will be determined when the assessment teams do hit the ground right there and figure out from eyewitness accounts as well as video taken and the radar that they'll be studying in terms of what exactly happened. I don't know if we could talk to Stu right there and Jeff up in the sky to talk about what you're seeing and feeling.
Well, right now, as you know, we're just kind of staying a little bit away from where that actual incident was, and it is because there's a huge cell making its way through there. And pretty much, Jeff pointed it out. He's like, Stu, look out the window, and you tell me. It's like you pretty much anywhere we point the camera, it is going to be dark and gray, and the rain is really, really coming down. We're basically right over Cal State LA right now, looking out towards Montebello. I can push into the actual intersection where that incident was, but the rain
rain's so heavy down there. I think we were just talking to Christy, and she was getting hammered by the rain. You can't even really make out what's going on because of all the rain that's falling right there on that Montebello area where all that devastation was earlier. You get kind of a wide shot right there. You can just see this is what a storm looks like from the air. A lot of times you can actually see that sheet of rain just kind of coming down, and in this case it is a lot of clouds and that heavy rain just dumping right now on the Montebello area. But this is what's been going on throughout the Southland for the past couple of days. We've been talking about how it's been raining, and then some spots will be nice and sunny, like right here at Cal State LA. It's not so bad. I mean, we are safe, and for sure you can see the freeways right down there, the 710, and there's Cal State. It's pretty much sunny right here, but over in Montebello it is probably dark and very stormy. Some winds, not those cyclone force winds right now, I would hope, but definitely raining out there and coming down. And then just tilt back up, and we can show you that's downtown. It's not as rainy, but definitely raining out there as well. So right now, that storm system making its way back through this area, through the San Gabriel area for sure. And those heavy rains probably going to hinder any of the efforts that those property owners would be doing to sheet up those roofs or put up any kind of tarping to keep their property dry. But right now, the storm here, but it's not that cyclone that was here just moments ago. Sandra?
Yeah, that's the last thing they need when we're looking at the damage left behind that you took from Skyfox. We are showing all of the damage in terms of the roofs being wide open now because of the plywood that was just torn up and torn apart from the roofs right there at the industrial complexes in Montebello. And yeah, the last thing they need is a big storm dumping a lot of rain inside their buildings as they try to figure out what exactly happened and then deal with all the devastation and damage left behind. Not only are we seeing the outside damage, but inside those buildings, as we talked to an employee who hunkered down and tried to get to safety, but also took video of inside that large complex. He saw debris flying around in his workspace, and he heard the mangled mess of metal being crunched in and flying around as well. So you could just imagine those scary moments for those employees just in one of those buildings alone and what they dealt with. They never had to deal or really heard of any tornado warning before this. He was saying, you know, this is Southern California. We deal with earthquakes, not tornadoes. But you could clearly see from all that video you took earlier before you had to move positions that there is a large area where they have felt this impact, whether it was a microburst, microcell event, or a potential tornado. This is going to take quite a long time in terms of cleanup and assessing all that damage, Stu.
Well, you know, whatever they call it, we saw the damage, and we saw the videos that a lot of these folks were taking on the ground when that actually hit. So, you know, if it was classified as a tornado or a microburst event or whatever, it ripped up rooftops, it tore up cars, and the damage is devastating out there. Right now, I'm sorry, I keep spinning the camera around because we actually are doing orbits out here and just trying to keep ourselves safe from those clouds. But the rain definitely coming back in. Hopefully they don't have those type of we don't have the ingredients to create another microburst out there or anywhere nearby. But at this moment right now, heavy rains are coming down in that Montebello area. That cell that we were watching or we moved out of the way for definitely just hammering that area right now. So any of those folks that are down there, you just feel for them. But you know what? In the end, it's even though it is property, it's not mine, so it might be easier to say it. It's just property that can be repaired. It can be fixed. We haven't heard of any injuries at all. I want it to stay like that. I would feel terrible if there was somebody up on a rooftop and now the heavy rains would create some sort of issue where somebody got injured. So right now, it is just a lot of rain coming down right after that microburst. Those first responders, they're going to be busy out there. We heard that fire chief from the Montebello Fire talking to us moments ago. Those guys know what they're doing. They know how to handle these situations. And of course, they're out there taking care of business and making sure it's safe for the public. And of course, that's the big concern right now. And I didn't know the power was out. It seemed like the power was still on in some of those spots. But again, it might just be a spotty type of situation. At any rate, right now the weather, it's the big deal out here in the California area.
Yeah, what you're talking about is the witness, the man we spoke with that works inside the Royal Paper Box Company, who spoke with us about the moment he realized what was happening. He said that inside his building, the power did go off first, and that's when all the employees, about 15 or so he was with, kind of were wondering what's going on, and then someone yelled tornado, and that's when he started rolling his camera and his video on his cell phone, and then he said that he started seeing debris flying all over the place inside and outside the building, and that's when he said, oh, we gotta run. And they all hunkered down trying to find a place where they were away from doors, away from windows, so that debris would not be flying onto them. And thankfully, again, as we've been mentioning, nobody was hurt in all this. It's hard to believe, because when you do see all of that devastating damage, and just imagining the sheer force of what it would take to rip off roofs and just throw those cars and big rigs around like they were toys, just the sheer force of that, and then the fact that hundreds of employees in all these buildings were unharmed, that is just such a blessing, and we are so thankful for that. But clearly, we're going to be hearing the stories of the people who were inside those buildings and who just never thought that a tornado would be a threat, or a microburst, whatever you want to call it, as Stu is saying. But clearly, this is such a scary situation, as they heard what they said felt like and sounded like a bomb going off. And I could imagine just the sheer terror of what that would seem like when you see the building you're in and the roof just blowing off of it. Right, Stu?
Oh, I couldn't even imagine what was going on down there, and then the changes of pressure. And, you know, a lot of those folks, they're probably going to be talking about that for the rest of their lives. That's an event that they will never, ever forget. Right now, I can tell you that El Monte Airport, or San Gabriel Airport, they put out a little bit of an advisory, and we are moving out of the area because of that. And we're making our way back towards the Van Nuys area right now. Actually, now, as soon as I said it, I felt Jeff is slowing Skyfox down a little bit. So we're over Glendale. Not sure if we're going to stay here and wait it out or what we're going to do, but we were asked to leave that area because of safety. So now we're actually moving a little bit more out to the west. But the storm, that cell that was in the area, they have a different one now. That's not what was going to happening earlier. Is there a possibility? Of course, there's always that possibility. The ingredients might be there for another wind event, but what's happening right now is a heavy downpour and very thick clouds, so we are unable to fly in those conditions, and we were asked to leave, and now we're actually moving out to the west. We're looking at downtown. They're getting hammered too right now. It is really starting to rain once again out here in the Los Angeles area.
Thank you so much, Stu and Jeff. Please get back to safety. We are seeing a live radar image on our screen right there in the corner, and you can see, yeah, those green cells moving through our area. So some areas you're going to get all of that downpour, as Stu has been feeling up there in Skyfox, as well as the Montebello area, again, being hit by all that rain. And we just saw Christy Fajardo just moments ago in that rain shower. I don't know if she's with us right now, but she is live on the scene, on the ground there in Montebello, assessing what exactly happened. She's talking to people who were impacted by all this. We're going to get to her later, but maybe we have her right now. I know the weather is spotty and the situation is dicey. Christy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. The rain is wreaking havoc on our equipment, as you can imagine. Electrical equipment and water don't mix very well, but I want to show you what we're seeing right now. You might be able to make out some of the debris there. And across the street, there's a tree that is down. And apparently all of this is a result of what may be a tornado. We're told that at this point, the National Weather Service is calling it a suspected tornado, and they plan to send someone down to assess the situation and tell us if that is indeed what happened here. But witnesses describe hearing very loud boom, and there was pretty extensive damage here at the scene. We know several cars were damaged, and people just couldn't believe what they were seeing. And I got to tell you, the weather has been very erratic, even while we've been here. When I first arrived, the sun was out. That's why I actually walked out with without all of my rain gear. And then just within minutes, it turned and it started pouring rain and the skies got gray. But you can see behind me that whatever happened here, it knocked out power. In fact, this intersection, which is Maple Avenue, is now without traffic lights. And it is really backing up traffic. And the same is true at Vail, which is a block from us. So people here, by the way, this is Washington and Maple Avenue, but people here are having to be very patient without the lights here. We've seen several near misses. One person was walking across the street. People are getting impatient trying to cross in their cars, and that person was almost hit. So very dicey situation here. We are monitoring it, and we'll keep you posted about what's happening. Listen, back to you.
All right, Christy, thank you. And then again, the downpour you're feeling right now there in Montebello as well. We're going to check back in with you shortly. But as we approach 1:30 right now, we would just want to let you know that a potential tornado did touch down in Montebello. At least that's what it seems like, judging by the damage left behind. Look at that. We are looking at Skyfox with an aerial view of the damage left behind after firefighters got a call at around 11:20 this morning that a roof was being torn off a building, but not just one building. Now you see it, several buildings in the area. We were counting about 7 industrial complex buildings were just devastated by this wind event. And clearly, you see all the debris, the devastation left behind by this event, and cars blown out, damaged by the debris, and also the gust and sheer force of all the wind, as well as so much damage within that area. But thankfully, no injuries to report because of this. Now we have Stu and Jeff up in Skyfox with the very latest. Stu.
Well, Skyfox making his way back to Van Nuys right now, and this is in the Burbank area, and the weather has just changed completely. When we left Van Nuys, like we were just talking about with Christy, it was, it was clear skies, everything was fine. Made our way out there, we saw all that devastation, and by the way, that is probably the most damage I have seen from weather and wind ever here in Southern California. Been doing news since the 90s, and that for sure is probably the worst that I've ever seen by far. The weather has really changed out here in the valley and the San Gabriel Valley. We're actually having to go a long way around. Hopefully we can get back into Van Nuys Airport. If we can't, we might have to put Skyfox down maybe at Burbank. But right now the weather has really changed. Those folks out there in Montebello, we saw Christy on the ground down there. She's probably getting hammered by heavy winds and also heavy rain right now. I know she's going to be safe there. Everybody is we always take safety first when we do any of our stories in these bad situations. And again, no injuries to anybody. It is just that is really truly the best part of that terrible story. Nobody was hurt at all. I was hearing that one person that we was talking to earlier on that worked at the Royal Box Company talking about the employees huddling. That must have been really scary moments, not even knowing what's going on outside. You just know that there's these crazy winds. Somebody's talking about a tornado. It's like in Southern California, most people probably don't even know what to do. And that's not any kind of slight. It's like we live in Southern California. We don't deal with tornadoes. And then in the end, seeing all that devastation, those rooftops ripped off, the debris thrown around, and we were hearing numbers, I believe, from Maria saying that it could have been up to 110-mile-an-hour winds. So just imagine a piece of debris, a piece of plywood moving at that speed or even at freeway speeds. We've seen the damage that can do. Thank goodness nobody was hurt. And in the end, we just have a lot of devastation. All those poor folks with the employees with their vehicles damaged so badly. Again, I really hope that they are able to have all that replaced, but in the end, no injuries. That's the big thing.
Absolutely. We are so thankful for that. And just to give you an idea, the epicenter in all this, as we've been mentioning, South Maple Avenue and Date Street, that's where one of the areas that were called in terms of the severe damage we're looking at. But you can see just how broad the debris field is and how impactful this has all been for that community and for the workers there in those industrial buildings. We did talk to Miguel Arellano, who was inside the Royal Paper Box Company when this happened. Let's hear from him.
I was inside the building, and we have a window in the back of the building, and they just said a tornado, and I just started recording. I don't know if you guys can see it.
So you were right by the window recording all of this happening?
Yeah, well, it's happening. I mean, then I started to run when I noticed it was an actual real tornado, but yeah. I mean, I don't know if you want me to send it to you, but yeah, then the damage, everybody just running.
So we can faintly see what you're showing us, but what did it sound like and feel like? So first you had the warning, so were you able to have the time to kind of get into a safe place?
Well, I mean, we're not used to tornadoes here in California, so you just see everybody running, and, well, you follow the leader, I guess. So, yeah, but how did it feel? It was something you don't feel every day, but, yeah, it was pretty intense. Yeah, it's something, a lot of people crying, a lot of people worried about their family, their kids.
What did it sound like to you, Miguel? Because looking at the damage, you know, we see roofs torn apart, we see metal mangled, garage doors blown in. What did it sound like, and how long did it last?
It lasted about a minute, more than a minute, because it touched down when I started recording, and the video is about 33 seconds. It felt like a bomb or something exploded, but then you actually see everything just flying around, all the debris. But yeah, it's actually just, I don't know, it just felt weird. You're not used to it. We're used to earthquakes.
Yeah, absolutely. So you saw yourself all the debris start flying, and you guys were running to protect yourselves?
Yeah, to run, to protect ourselves. Pieces of the roof were flying out. Just damage, and yeah, we don't have a protocol for tornadoes, I guess. So everybody just huddled in a safe place, I guess. And yeah, I mean, it was an experience.
There you had Miguel Arellano, who was inside the Royal Paper Box Company when this wind event happened. And he said he was by a window, which is, by the way, not what you should do when there is a tornado warning. When the National Weather Service is issuing a tornado warning, or if there's a danger or threat of potential tornado winds, please go inside to the innermost place of your building or your house, a lower level or basement if possible. Get away from the doors and the windows, because debris can fly in and all around, clearly. But thankfully, no one was hurt in all of this, but clearly a very scary situation for all of those employees right there who are now picking up the pieces, trying to survey the damage and the devastation left behind. Let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Rick Dickert, who could tell us all about what you think really happened here, because the fire department's saying it's a microcell event, Rick, and then the National Weather Service probably assessing maybe something different.
That's right, and they will get meteorologists out there. Thank you, Sandra. We're determining whether it's straight line winds, which would be due to a downburst. Think of a water faucet. When that water comes straight down on the base of your sink, it spreads out in all different directions there, but it's more of a straight line event, where tornadic winds are circular there, and we look at the damage to determine the direction of the trees that were knocked down, the poles that were knocked down, any of those power poles. You see the big rig container trucks that have been overturned. Bottom line, this is a significant wind event, not a complete surprise. We were anticipating the potential for some severe weather because of the instability in the atmosphere. A colder air mass has moved in over Southern California, a lot of lift in the atmosphere with the cold air loss and a little bit of surface heating. When the sun came out, that air rises and creates that instability there. But what we're going to determine here, the National Weather Service will send out a team to Montebello to assess that damage, to determine if these were either tornadic winds or straight line winds from a microburst. We rate tornadoes, much like we do with hurricanes, on a scale of 0 to 5, an EF, and what that stands for, enhanced or an upgraded Fujita scale. Dr. Fujita is the atmospheric scientist who devised this rating scale many years back. And what they do is they look at the scale of the damage, so wind damage, and EF0 being the garden variety type of tornadoes, where an EF4 or 5, those are the horrific storms that we see in the Midwest and the plain states. So they will determine whether the winds are tornadic or straight line. Bottom line, a lot of damage there. Bottom line, instability in the atmosphere. We can anticipate more showers, isolated thunderstorms, some that could create the funnel clouds, the tornadoes, the graupel or small hail into the afternoon and overnight hours before this low pressure system finally exits Southern California. We had two components to this weather system. We had the atmospheric river that arrived during the first part of the day yesterday when we saw that steady moderate to occasionally heavy rain late night Monday into the morning hours on Tuesday. And then behind it, this colder low pressure system dropping south out of the Gulf of Alaska began to impact us. And that's what's still impacting us. Remember when we show you the radar and we watch the radar, we'll have a key in the upper right corner of your screen that indicates the intensity of those storms. And when you see the yellows, the oranges, and the reds, that is the most significant. We've seen a lot of hail out there, some graupel, some frozen precipitation down to sea level like we did here in Manhattan Beach overnight last night, and that will continue into the next several hours and the overnight hours before this low-pressure system starts to exit the area. And one point, Sandra, about tornadic activity. We have been hit by tornadoes in the past here in Southern California, and this might surprise you and many people at home, that west of the Mississippi River, California, the Central Valley, the Sacramento Valley to the north, and the San Joaquin Valley to the south, and the coastal areas of Southern California, including LA and Orange County, have a higher instance of tornadoes than any location west of the Continental Divide. And that is because of the fact of our coastline, the way it bends as you look at the radar right now, the inland location of the mountains. And as these low-pressure systems drop into Southern California, all of that interacts to create the severe weather. Yes, these tornadoes, as I said, more of the garden variety type, not the devastating storms that we see in the plains in the Midwest. But west of the Continental Divide that runs through the Rocky Mountains, we have more tornadoes or tornadic activity in the Central Valley of California and the coastal areas of Southern California than any other parts of the western states.
It's just surprising to all of us, right, Rick, that we are dealing with something like this. I know you said, yes, that categorically that we kind of have the right conditions for potential tornadic activity, but I mean, I don't remember any time really dealing with this kind of weather and this type of damage we've been seeing in our communities, especially in Montebello. But let's take a look at this video. We're getting video coming in. I don't know if you saw it, Rick, too, but it does show the time it happened, some cloud. I don't know if it's the downspurt, as you mentioned, just a straight line wind event or tornadic in terms of wind and circular motions, as you've been mentioning. But you see the debris flying around. It does look a little circular. I'm no expert, obviously, but you're just seeing the devastation and just the roofing being ripped off of those buildings.
Yeah, there's no question, and that could be tornadic damage. And looking, you could see right there, you could see the circular motion. This is the first time I'm seeing this video, and that is a funnel cloud dropping from the base of that thunderstorm cloud, that cumulonimbus cloud, where these storms originate from. That clearly, at least that video, does look like it would be more tornadic, that it is circular there. The way that the debris is spinning there in a counterclockwise flow and that funnel dropping down, that certainly looks more tornadic as I look at this for the first time, as opposed to the straight line winds. And again, they're going to rate this storm. The team from the National Weather Service up in Oxnard, which is responsible for the forecast and warning areas of Montebello and LA County, will come out and assess the damage likely tomorrow, if not sooner, once this event moves on, this low-pressure system moves on. And they will look at everything. They will look at the direction that the trees that were impacted are knocked down. They will look at those container trucks and how they were impacted, all that debris. And, of course, they're going to assess all the video from people who witnessed this nearby that industrial area and determine if indeed it was a tornado and how they will rate it, an EF0, an EF1, an EF2 even. Most of the tornadoes that have impacted Southern California, and I have seen in my time here, born and raised here in Southern California, I've witnessed from Skyfox and on the ground covering a couple of waterspouts. One of the waterspouts down in the Seal Beach area actually did move ashore, and once a waterspout moves ashore, that's a tornado over water, and moves over land, it does become a tornado. Most of those in the EF0 to EF1 range, which are the weakest systems, which have the weakest winds, but still can cause a lot of damage here. But definitely unique to Southern California. We keep mentioning, Sandra, the winter of 1982 and 1983, and I was just a young kid back then, but that was a big El Nino year here in Southern California and all of California. We're comparing our snowpack this year to that year, the 82 and 83 year. That year, in March of 1983, a tornado moved through downtown L.A. and damaged the convention center in Los Angeles.
That's right. Wow. It's just so shocking and incredible to see this video, as you mentioned, this new video coming in showing that funnel cloud. Rick, stay with us. We're going to get back to you in a second. Let's go live to the ground right now where Christy Fajardo is there on the scene where all the devastation has been left behind. Oh, my gosh. Incredible behind you, Christy.
It is incredible, right? We are not used to seeing this type of damage from tornado-like or suspected tornadoes here in Southern California. This is actually a public storage unit, and you can see that the roofing has been torn off. So whoever owns this storage unit likely is going to have a lot of water damage because it was also followed by torrential rains. It was really coming down here for a while. Luckily, it has lightened up. But we heard Rick talking about the sort of zigzag pattern, and we're actually seeing evidence of that here. What is really striking to me is this debris field, or perhaps I should say trail of debris. We're seeing debris as far away as a block away, but then we're also seeing it not in a straight line, sort of in a unusual or unpredictable line, I should say, or very bent line. And then you could just see, too, that the debris sort of comes here and then stops across the street. So it doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason like we've seen in other weather patterns. And we've talked also about how remarkable it is that no one was injured. This is a very busy area. In fact, you could probably tell just from the line of traffic here behind me. This is the intersection of Washington and Maple. And the lights are out, so right now traffic is backing up, and that's why you're only seeing a few cars going by, because the intersection is behind the cameraman, and so they're stopping to let other traffic through and then coming through themselves. But this is an industrial area, as we've talked about. There are warehouses, there are public storage units. Many people here work here. Witnesses describe hearing a very loud boom. One woman who had damage to her car said she actually saw her car come up a little off the ground. I mean, that is the type of power that we're talking about. And I know that in coming days, we are likely to see a lot more video because, again, this is an industrial area. We're seeing tons of security cameras, and at least some of those might have captured what might be a tornado. Listen, it back to you.
All right, Christy, wow, the devastation behind you, and clearly that is just one little area, but we're talking about blocks in terms of the devastation left behind by this event, and clearly we're going to figure out and find out over the next coming days what exactly this is from the National Weather Service as they send out an assessment team to Montebello to figure out whether or not this was actually a tornado touching down in that neighborhood. Thank you so much for watching Fox 11 and our coverage of this potential tornado damage in Montebello. We'll have much more coming up in the evening at Fox 11 at 5 o'clock this evening. So please join us then. For now, thank you again for joining us, and we'll return to regular programming.